good evening. Welcome. This is Hot Edition. We're live from Anusa Batadisa Kanda. Also live on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. We're live on W93.5 in Wa and beyond. I am Alfred Ocansey this evening here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. The Accra Metropolitan Assembly declares landfill sites full. That means the Greater Accra region faces a risk of disease outbreak. We'll give you details of that shortly. Plus, PRC defense tariff hikes despite ongoing power and water disruptions. We've got details for you because in the Adan West Sege area, we understand that residents have been without water for almost 7 days. Stay with us. We've got details for you. $150 million needed to win presidential election in Ghana. That's according to the latest report by the Center for Democratic Development, CDD. We've got details for you here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Also, Charlotte Osei, as a former EC chair, calls for the amendment to the asset declaration regime. We've got details for you, as well as the latest in business and sport for the next 1 hour, 30 minutes here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We're also on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. We're live on W 93.5 in Wa and beyond. Your thoughts, views, comments and opinions are welcome. We're heavy as well on the happenings in the Boko municipality. Also, here on Hot Edition, Goldfields Limited to shut its operations at Damang Mines on April 18 after government's refusal to renew lease. Meanwhile, the Mine Workers Union of TUC raises serious concerns and demands explanation from governance. Stay with us. We've got details of these and more here on Hot Edition. Let's settle for a summary of the news now. And your Nam Haliga is here.
Well, in today's summary, the government has unveiled a new agriculture initiative, the Feed Ghana program to facilitate a transformation of the country's agriculture sector. The initiative seeks to boost agricultural production to feed the population, providing raw materials to feed the agro-processing factories and create jobs for the teeming youth. The Ghana School Feeding Program Secretariat has begun a broader restructuring under the direct supervision of the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection. The reforms, the Secretariat said, were to decentralize operations and enhance quality of meals provided to school children and ensure consistency and timeliness in catering compensation. Now, President John Dramani Mahama has given an assurance that the peace mediation process being led by the Asantehene Otumfuo Seitu II will resume next week as part of intensified efforts to restore calm in the Boko area. Before I go, the Gold Board has announced that all gold trading licensing issued by PMMC or the Minister for Mines, except those held by large-scale mining companies, are no longer valid. This follows the passage of the Gold Act, thus Act 1140, which was approved by Parliament on March 29 and signed into law by the President on April 2. That's it for the summaries.
And Maliga, appreciate you. This morning is on 3news.com. Thank you so much for the summary of the news. And you can make some time and visit 3news.com for some more details. Still live here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, also on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. We're live on W93.5 in Wa and beyond, and your thoughts, views, comments and opinions are welcome. We're ready to you into the rest of it. Let's get into the details right now. The news coming through is that over 1,000 workers from the Daman mines are set to stage a mass picketing at the Minerals Commission next week. The protest, organized by the Ghana Mine Workers Union, is aimed at pressing the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources and the Minerals Commission to provide explanation to its decision not to renew the mining lease held by Aboso Goldfields Limited, a subsidiary of Goldfields Limited. The decision not to renew the mining lease comes at a time when the existing 30-year lease granted on April 18, 1995 is set to expire on April 18, 2025, which is just some 4 days away from now. Now, while no official explanation has been provided, we're gathering, indeed, that government may be considering a broader policy shift towards the nationalization of mining operations in the country. Now, here's what the challenge is, because the General Secretary of the Ghana Mine Workers Union, Abdul Momin Bana, has raised concerns about this particular development, and the media reports, as has been suggested, is going to be joining us shortly. Meanwhile, Goldfields Limited has confirmed that its application to extend the mining lease for the diamond mine in Ghana has been rejected by government. In a statement released earlier today, the company noted it has been instructed to cease operations and vacate the site by 18th April 2025 upon the lease's expiration. Goldfields also, in its 2024 integrated annual report, had disclosed that it had applied for the extension of the diamond mining lease, which was also originally submitted in 2021. Now, the company in the statement said it has since been actively engaging with the relevant authorities following the rejection of the application. Now, Goldfields said it is now preparing to safely and responsibly wind down operations at Daman with a focus on protecting its workforce and ensuring the security of its high-risk operations. Now, the company has meanwhile emphasized its commitment to ongoing engagement with the Ghanaian government to achieve the best possible outcome for all stakeholders. Let's stay a bit further on this. Abdul Momin Bana is General Secretary of the Mine Workers Union. He's joining us on the telephone right now. So, Abdul Momin, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, my brother.
Great. Now, from the workers' point of view, what are the specific concerns about this particular position that we understand government has taken not to renew this engagement, and then also possible nationalization of our resources?
Well, thank you very much, and thanks for the opportunity. I think first and foremost, what we need to underscore is the fact that mining is big business. It's not child's play. And for that matter, for you to venture into mining, you require huge, capital to invest. And so every business person who goes into mining obviously goes with a risk. And so the expectation is that there will be some level of certainty, some level of predictability to enable you, invest and be able to make the returns to pay back whatever you would have raised by way of capital. And for that matter, I believe that Goldfields came with that agenda. They came with the idea that they're going to invest long term with a view to creating value, not just for the shareholder, but also for our country, Ghana, and also by way of employment, workers get to get some employment from Goldfields. Now, the decision by government to not to extend the mining lease, I'm unable to establish why that will happen. But if the only reason is because the mining lease has come to an end or is expired, and that is the premise on which the mining lease will not be extended, I find that quite problematic. Because when a mining lease expires, it affords the government also an opportunity to enter into some negotiations. Because the conditions precedent for the extension of the mining lease can always be negotiated, so that it affords not just the Goldfields in this case the opportunity to get an extension and continue to invest in the diamond mine, but it also affords the government, to take advantage of the window of opportunity and ensure that whatever gains that probably we didn't get in the initial lease agreement, we can always get that renegotiated so that it benefits the country. So as it stands now, as workers, like you rightly indicated, over 1,000 workers, their fate, and for that matter, what the future holds for them, is not one that you can guarantee. But you are asking yourself, what is the alternative to government's decision not to extend the mining lease? Is government throwing all these teeming young men and women onto the streets? What are the alternatives? If you do not have immediate alternatives to mitigate the impact of your decisions, we think that this decision is quite unfair under the circumstances. If there's a broader view about how the mineral resources of this country should be managed, that is entirely a different, subject matter or a conversation altogether. Then in that case, government will have to come up with a more comprehensive view about how the mineral resources of this country will be managed going forward, so that you can communicate more clearly, not just to the outside world by way of the investor community, but also your internal stakeholders by way of the workers who work for these companies. Because today is Goldfields, whose mining lease has run to an end, and government says I'm unable to extend. What happens to all the other mining companies in the industry? And what happens to prospective investors who are contemplating on getting into the mining market? So it raises a whole lot of confusion in the minds of the investor community, in the minds of workers who work in the industry, and for the host communities within which these mining companies operate. So government ought to pause and engage Goldfields. If there is a much bigger agenda about how we nationalize our mines, and that is the broader policy direction for government, even that will require some stakeholder consultation so that we are all clear in our minds that going forward, this is the way and manner the mining industry of Ghana is going to manage.
I see. And that point that you end is where I'm going to pick it up from. So that, I mean, if these media reports were monitoring anything to go by, the option government is looking at is the nationalization of our resources, our mining operations as a country. From where you sit and based on your experience in this area, is it a viable option that government should be looking at?
Well, we have some history behind us. I mean, in the 80s, we had what we call the state gold mining corporations. Virtually all the mines that we have today, whether in Takwa, in Bogoso, in Aboso, or in Obuasi, these were all state-operated mines. And it didn't appear we got the best out of the decision by government to run the mines all by itself. I mean, if you look at what we went through within that period and what we are going through today, I can say without any shred of doubt that we are better off under this current arrangement. And so it depends on what kind of interventions government is putting in place. If you want to nationalize, you just don't nationalize without putting in the right structures in place. At the end of the day, if you are not careful and you go under an agenda of nationalization, you may just have some individuals who will take over these assets and then line up their pockets to the greater disadvantage of all of us. And so it's important that if that is the agenda, what are the systems that government intends to put in place so that at the end of the day, the outcomes of your nationalization agenda benefits the entire nation. If those arrangements are not put in place, I can assure you that a wholesale nationalization agenda will not inure to the benefit of this country.
The underlying consideration in this whole nationalization option from our sources close to this conversation within government is to, as it were, increase local content and then also the local ownership in our extractive industry. Isn't that paramount, one that should be also be looked at in the scheme of things?
Yes, that's what I'm saying, that yes, you can pursue an agenda to localize. That is in the right direction. But you must have the right systems in place to ensure that the agenda you are pursuing would be maximized or optimized to the greater benefit of the entire Ghanaian, to the entire country. But if you pursue an agenda of localization where the aggregate effect of that policy position doesn't actually bring out what you anticipate, I think that it would have been a counterproductive, arrangement. And that's why our view as a union is that, look, if you have any broad policy position which is geared towards local participation or greater local participation, and for that matter, there is a gradual shift, towards nationalization, then you need to carry everybody along so that we get to that point where we believe that, look, this policy direction is a direction that would bring in maximum returns to the country. And for that matter, every Ghanaian will benefit from the outcomes of the mining that we do in this country. But if you pursue an agenda, in my view, if you look at the way this Abosu Goldfields lease extension, government went about it, clearly it doesn't appear that government really had a clear plan on how to proceed. Because it is as if to suggest that from now on, any mining company whose mining lease comes to an end, it is most likely that we are not going to extend it. So if that is what you are communicating to investors, like I indicated earlier, it sends shivers down their spines, and people begin to, or investors begin to contemplate whether or not Ghana is the right place to do business. So you can have an agenda, but that agenda must be situated within a context which would, at the end of the day, bring the returns or bring the outcomes that you are looking for. But you also don't do that at the expense of existing players within the market who would also be alarmed arising out of your decisions or the decisions that you make.
And so what's going to be the next step for you? I mean, the understanding I get is that now there's some sort of an attempt to engage government on it to get some better, further particulars on this position. But what's going to be the next step for you?
Well, as it stands now, like I indicated, over 1,000 workers are likely to lose their jobs because of this sudden decision by government. I don't know whether it was well thought out. But that is likely the situation that we're going to have on our hands, where you have in excess of 1,000 workers, going without jobs. So the question is, what are the alternatives? What is government's own plans about its own decisions? So given the circumstances under which we find ourselves, I'm sure that government may have to put forward some alternative measures or arrangements beyond its decision not to extend. But I indicated earlier that it is important that government continues the consultations with Goldfields so that in between the next round of the extension of the lease, whatever government's intentions are about how we manage the industry going forward must be quite comprehensive and elaborate so that everybody understands that, look, going forward, this is how things are going to be done. So that in terms of the investor, he knows what to do and what not to do and all that. But as it stands now, if government still holds on to its decision not to extend the mining lease, what that means is that we may have to approach government for to ensure that our incomes and our livelihoods continue to come to the workers who may be affected as a result of these decisions. And so decision to go to the ministry and possibly to the seat of government to let them understand that the decisions that they make have ramifications. And one of the key ramifications here is loss of jobs and, for that matter, loss of incomes and livelihoods. We must drum up this position and get government to do the needful by making sure that our incomes are paid. Whichever way has to be done, it's entirely their decision because they've taken this decision not to extend the mining lease.
I understand you intend picketing at the Minerals Commission next week, correct?
Yeah, it's an option that is being considered because, like I said, if workers are going to sit home without any way forward on how their incomes are going to be paid and all that, then obviously the powers that be who made the decision not to extend the mining lease for whatever reasons, I think that they may have to answer, or they should have some answers for us. If not, how are we going to go, about our lives without any source of incomes when we had some jobs with Goldfields and many of the contractors that we work for? So yes, it is something that is on the table, which we are likely to consider from next week onwards.
So Abdul, thank you for your time, and this is a conversation that is just developing quite fast, and so we'll keep an eye on how things play out. Appreciate you. Thank you. Abdul Momin Bana is General Secretary of the Mine Workers Union, joining us with his thoughts on this. And this is one that we're keeping an eye on to see how things play out here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, also on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. We're live on W 93.5 in Wa and beyond. There's some news just coming through right now from the Ghana Center for Democratic Development, CDD. They've highlighted alarming figures regarding the cost of winning elections in Ghana, raising serious concerns about the future of democratic governance and the country's battle against corruption. Now, take a listen to this. According to the report, securing victory in both presidential and parliamentary elections now requires an estimated $150 million and an additional 10 million Ghana cedis. That's if you want to win a parliamentary election in this country or a presidential election in this country, to be elected as member of parliament to serve, And as president to serve, you must have or spend at least $150 million and an additional 10 million Ghana cedis. Now, this report attributes this significant cost to the increasing monetization of the electoral process, a trend it warns is entrenching corruption and weakening accountability within public office. Now, Dr. Kojo Pompone Asante, Director of Programs at CDD Ghana, expressed his concern about the situation during a presentation before the Constitutional Review Committee, calling the situation alarming. But this is not the first time CDD has put out numbers like this, except to say that this time around, the numbers have gone up quite sharply and concerning. Now, Dr. Jonathan Asantiochiri is a senior lecturer at the University of Cape Coast. He's a political analyst. He's joining us on the telephone right now. Dr. Asantiochiri, good evening. Thank you for joining us here on Hot Edition.
Good evening, Alfred. Good evening to your listeners.
And as I indicated earlier, this is not the first time, really, that we're hearing some value put to the money that politicians spend in order to be elected to serve as civil or public servants, for that matter. Now, we're hearing from the CDD latest that $150 million at the least is what you have to spend to be elected as either a member of parliament or a president, and an additional 10 million Ghana cedis. That is, if you want to get in as president of the Republic of Ghana. I mean, how concerning are these figures for you?
Yeah, they're really concerned in that apart from these figures being mind-boggling, it is quite overwhelming to assume that you will need to spend that much in order to be elected as president and, for that matter, as an MP. Now, the point is that how many Ghanaians who have worked in the public sector or public service do have such an amount? Well, in our part of the world, to mention $150 million is huge. And obviously, you are going to push away people with fine brains that do not have what it takes to raise this kind of amount to be able to compete or contest. So, by and large, you are going to elect probably money launderers. We are going to elect people who are overly corrupt. We are going to elect people who do not really care as to how much they intend to spend, as long as power is within their grasp. That is the kind of democracy we are finally ending up with. I have said, time without number, that this delegate system must be modified, because the delegate system, takes a greater chunk of the expenditures that the politicians incur. And if they do not modify that, then certainly this trend is going to continue and even come at an alarming rate in the next election. Well, I don't know for sure how they're able to arrive at such a calculation. But what this means is that an individual cannot single-handedly do this. So that individual will have to, spread his or her tentacles to be able to rope in financiers. And that person may not be so much bothered about who the financiers are or where the money is coming from. Whether it's coming from the mining, the gamsayers, whether it's coming from money launderers, whether it's coming from, ritualists and so on and so forth. As long as they'll be able to raise this kind of huge money, they are good to go. They just want to have power. And that is it. And we need to also bear in mind that if somebody is going to raise that kind of money to be able to expend and take care of his or her campaign and to win, it means that they will have to find a means of recouping that money back into their coffers or back to where they got that money from. And that could be either giving out juiciest contracts to people who financed, and then, of course, it will be corruption-ridden. Apart from that, procurement processes and other things could easily be loosened to ensure that these people have a way of recouping the expenditures they would have incurred in the course of the process of getting elected. And you will see that there is going to be a correspondent increment in the debt profile of the country, because as long as contract prices are overrated, overpriced, it will go back to the state. It will go back to the state. So there is that corresponding measure between financing this political campaigning and then the debt profile of the nation going up. So if we were able to raise our debt from 120 to 721 billion, all these are part from getting elected through the delegate system, getting elected nationally, the campaigning, the fueling, the what's it called, the hotel accommodation. I mean, name them. There are huge sums of money that are needed to be able to get yourself elected. And so this is where we've come to. And there is a need for us to, have a thorough understanding and investigation and discussion of this particular issue. Other than that, our democracy will collapse one day because we'll be electing criminals.
And you see, you outlined the issues quite clearly, and it's fundamental, Dr. Asanchochi, because you outlined the fact that, one, what we're going to be faced with is that these persons who are getting to these public offices are not really going to care about where the money is coming from. And so if it's coming from galamsey operators who come in and say, you know what, I'm going to fund your campaign, but make sure you don't also touch my business, and pretend to be fighting illegal mining. And then it's going to dip in corruption, as you indicated. And also, the most concerning one is that fine brains, people with good ideas who do not have that much money cannot be elected into office to serve. And then also we're having to then open up the avenue for criminals to be elected into public office in this country. Because if you're talking about $150 million and an additional 10 million Ghana cedis if you are contesting for president, if you want to win, I mean, what should be the solution to this? Because we've been having this conversation for quite a while, where we talk about the monetization of our politics. And so if you don't have this much money, you cannot win an election in Ghana. What should be the way forward? What should be the measures and policies in place to address this matter?
Well, I don't know, but I think that the reverse has been the case in this country. People win elections, they form government before they are made to declare their assets. Because if it were to be the case that the moment you got elected as a presidential candidate, you will have to declare your assets. Or even when you intend to contest into that public office, because the moment you are elected as a candidate, you are a public figure. So why wouldn't we let them declare their assets in that process, instead of they winning and forming government before they do so? Now, if they are supposed to do so, then we will have known what their value is. But in actual fact, you must be a responsible candidate to be able to raise this kind of money. Other than that, you see, the consequences are that these smaller parties will forever remain smaller because they don't have the potential to win. And they may have the best of candidates, but they will not get the opportunity to run the affairs of this country. That being said, we need to, as I said earlier on, to have a real look at this delegate system. It is either we allow party card-bearing members in a particular area to take part in the voting process. They can be executives. Nobody asks them to become executives. But they should not have the opportunity to be the sole deciders as to who becomes a candidate, of a particular party before they go for the national one. We should be able to expand the base. If we do expand the base, it will be more driven by politics of ideas, instead of, it would have been a contest of ideas instead of the one whose pocket is bigger. Because we've seen people who have gotten elected into several offices or positions in this country that you see that they are next to nothing, but they are just empty. But who are you to say that the person, should leave that particular portfolio? But he got elected. He used his resources to do so. Remember, an MP said that if anybody is ready to pay this, he's also ready to pay that because he's touched dollars and to be able to do so. But they belong to the political class. And we have not been interested in as to what kind of job he does, how he's able to stash dollars, and so on and so forth. And so if we are not careful with things of that nature, this democracy will crash along the line. So I think that the two main political parties should have a real look at this delegate system. They must start from there. And I'm reliably informed that the MPP, as part of gathering, going about this committee, doing their work and other things, they seem to be ready to propose a modification, of the delegate. And if they are able to do so, I think that would be a step forward, because we cannot continue like this. The next time you are not able to raise these resources, you don't really care where you're going to get the money from. And that is not the best way to grow democracy.
And some have proposed that this conversation about state funding of political parties should also be an avenue to explore if we have to deal with the increasing monetization of our politics and its attendant, negative effects, as you have outlined quite clearly.
See, yeah, the issue is political funding, funding of political campaign. I am not too for this state sponsoring, political parties. We may end up having mushrooming. We may have so many political parties being founded or being formed. So they go and contest because they will get some state funding. But if you really mean business, I think there should be more mergers along the line. When you have these smaller parties merging, I think that in itself will also help solve some of these problems, because they'll be able to put their resources together and be able to execute a campaign, that will sync well with the people of Ghana. The other thing too is that poverty. Poverty is the main enemy within this fraternity that we are talking about, because now people think that, look, these people, when they come and they win, that is it. So we are going to get our pound of flesh. If they win and we don't see them again, that is all good. And so they will all go all out, like you see happening in the delegate system. They will go all out. Some will be hiding. They will not come and vote until it gets to the dying embers of the voting process. And then somebody will have marshal some resources, pay them before they come. So I think that if there is no giver, there is no receiver. All have sinned and have fallen short before the glory of God. And so we may have to have a relook entirely. Because I tell you what, the kind of resources that the MPP expended before the final elections is mind-boggling. Look at the number of elections that they conducted at the branch level, at the constituency, and then they went regional, and then, they went national. Then after that, they did orphan, and then they did where they have MPs. Then you saw the two presidential primaries. They did 8 internal elections. And you know that every level of election, you create acrimony, and they're going to spend a lot of money. So we need to have a real look at some of these processes. Other than that, if the internal processes leading to the election for the external one, if we do not have a real look at some of these things, I think that our democracy will not survive. And we are just going to be electing criminals.
But it's not an issue just with the NPP. You saw it as well play out in the NDC. They also had their own internal elections where resources were visibly at play, is it not? I mean, money sharing was also captured. So it's a collective political problem, or a sin, as you have described it, that has to be addressed.
Certainly, but maybe because they were in opposition then, you could see that they were quite moderate. You remember how much it was alleged that Dr. Baumia raised for 800,000 people, 400 cities per head. Mr. Kennedy also raised about 300, we're told. And if you do the multiplication, I mean, how is that possible? So the CDB's report may not be far from wrong. It is indeed, some, I think, figures that we need to interrogate. I think that it is bordering on factual, some kind of accuracy in terms of the figures that they are giving out. Because if you do that multiplication, that was for the internal. Look at the external one as well. So the two main political parties, yes, they need to have a relook at that. Because in the political class, they decide not to give money, and they are disciplined along that line. So the delegate, how are you going to have access to that money? And I think that is the best way to go. If you need to pay money at all, that money should be routed through the party, so that the party will be the one giving that transportation and accommodation, not individuals doing so, so that individuals who are caught doing so are disqualified from the process. But the political class will not have what it takes to cut that whip, because they believe that it could create some kind of internal confusion. But as long as the contestants, the politicians, decide that, or the party decides that everybody is supposed to give this money to the party, let's say 1 million Ghana cedis per contestant. These are the number of delegates coming. This is what we are going to give. As some of those coming from this direction, coming from that. And that is where it should end. If that happens, then it means that it's an official kind of honorarium given. And it's not as though the one who has more money giving more money. You give 1,000, I give 2,000. You give 2,000, you give 3,000. No, that's not the best way to go. I think that thing should be modified, and the payment system should be done through the party. Because whatever be the case, these people, some of them may not be working. And as long as he's coming to come and vote for someone that he believes that is going to occupy a position, he will have to demand something. But that should go through the party, and the party should give, that kind of honorarium to the delegate, so that will reduce the corruption in that area as well.
Dr. Jonathan Church, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining us here on Hot Edition. It's live here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Also on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. We're live on W93.5 in Wa and beyond. Now, if you're just joining us here on Hot Edition, the story just coming through, developing quite swiftly, is a new report by the Center for Democratic Development, CDD, Ghana. They've highlighted alarming figures regarding the cost of winning elections in Ghana, raising serious concerns about the future of democratic governance and the country's battle against corruption. According to this report, which we have a copy of, securing victory in both presidential and parliamentary elections in Ghana now requires an estimated $150 million. If you do not have $150 million, don't dream of, in fact, going into elections in this country or contesting for parliamentary elections, just for the parliamentary. Now, if you want to contest as a presidential candidate and hopefully stand a chance of winning, in addition to the $150 million, you must have an additional $10 million to add to that. Now, these are the concerns that you heard Dr. Jonathan Church outline what dangers we're faced with as a country if this increasing monetization of our politics continues. A number of you have been sharing your thoughts with us at 3FM927 on Facebook, read out to you into the rest of the world, also on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and on W93.5 in Wa and beyond. We're keeping an eye on how this particular story is generating a lot of reactions from you. And to the new Patriotic Party now, a former Minister for Environment, Science, Technology and Innovation, Professor Kwabena Frimpong has called for the removal of what he terms bad elements within the NPP. He expects all party executives to resign for bad leadership, which he says led to the party's shameful defeat in the 2024 elections, unquote. Professor Boateng believes a change in party leadership will restore dignity and trust amongst the grassroots as well as Ghanaians. The renowned heart surgeon expressed his disappointment in former President Akufo-Addo's leadership, describing the former president as, quote, unreceptive and close-minded, unquote. He has also called on politicians to build the human capacity of the citizenry to increase productivity for efforts and also the export, not dwell on raising revenue only within the country. He stressed the need for the country's leadership to apply common sense and avoid corruption. And that's coming from Professor Kwabena Frimpong. If you can find more of that on 3news.com, make some time and visit 3news.com and talk about him. And you do know that role that he played in their fight against corruption in the ex-Alfred Akrofi Ocansey administration and all the backlash that he received in that regard. Well, what we're learning this evening is that the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources is expected to deploy some 453 personnel under the Blue Water Initiative to support the Ghana Navy in safeguarding the country's major water bodies from the activities of illegal miners. This follows the completion of 4 weeks of intensive training at the Ghana Navy Forward Base at Ezilibo in the Jomoro district of the Western region. The trainees, referred to as Blue Water Guards, underwent a comprehensive 3-phase training regime comprising theoretical, physical, and practical components. Now, the initiative, we understand, according to the information we have, 453 officers form part of the larger deployment target. The operations will be managed by 5 naval operational bases set up across the river systems to ensure effective surveillance and response. But how effective is this going to be? Awala Sewa is the co-founder of Eco-Conscious Citizens, one of the foremost CSOs we have in the environment space in this country, and also leading the fight against illegal mining with the CSOs as well. I will appreciate your time. Good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening to you and your listeners, and thank you very much for having me.
You had earlier expressed some disquiet about this whole Blue Water Guards initiative and how it's going to be effective in the fight against illegal mining. Well, we understand that initial batch of 453 officers, which forms part of a larger deployment target of 2,000 water guards, are going to be deployed before end of the month. Still convinced, or your position is still unchanged?
You see, currently we face an existential threat. We know the water bodies where we have the environmental terrorists. What is stopping us as we speak from sending the Navy there to ensure that we get rid of them and their equipment? We're not doing that. Today, I've just received a report from Erastus Safari Donko talking about the Tano Nimiri Forest Reserve being under siege. He has reported to the sector minister and to other relevant authorities. So we know where the environmental terrorists are. I don't think we are waiting for the Blue Water Guards to act. So my problem is that what added advantage is that going to be to stop the environmental threat we face right now? I can't see what is the benefit.
To the extent that the existential threat is right there before our eyes, the existing structures, in your view, can address this efficiently, even without the water guards?
You see, the house is burning. When your house is burning, your priority is to put out the fire. That is what you do first. After you put out the fire, you can put other systems in place. Right now, we need to declare a state of emergency. So many people, within and without the NDC, NPP, so many civil society organizations have come and said, declare a state of emergency. The situation is serious. The ecocide is going on. Our water bodies are being poisoned. Water is life. And instead of declaring the state of emergency, it's one policy after the other, which does not go to the roots of the matter. Yes, this will help. Maybe job for the boys. That is all very well and good. But how is it helping us to deal with the existential threats we face? I don't know if you don't realize that the house is burning. The window of opportunity is narrowing or closing. We need to declare a state of emergency yesterday so that we can regain our water bodies. As we speak, River Akombra and others are being diverted. Are we waiting for the Blue Water Guards before we go and do something about it? So I'm saying that let's understand what is going on and solve the problem before it's too late.
I see. Now, how about that particular position that government, and I'm talking about the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources and the Environment, Science, Technology, take the position that they are employing these measures of, for instance, clamping down on these excavators and so on, so as to continuously assess the situation even before the declaration of a state of emergency. Does that suffice in any way for you?
You see, what we would say is that we don't seem to see the urgency of the matter. You see, once you destroy our water bodies, you are signing our death warrant. And so what we need to do is to act now. We have all the information we need. Now, when it comes to excavators, the forestry staff have told us that burning the excavators to them was the easiest or most effective way of acting, because when the environmental terrorists find out that they are coming, they remove the waterboard. You can't move the excavators. Getting a low loader to put them on is very, very expensive, and it takes time. Whilst you are doing that, they can attack you, because you need the element of surprise, or then you need to have the military guarding you. Now, all this will be short-circuited if you declare a state of emergency. Ask everybody, leave our water bodies, leave our forest reserves, we are coming. And then you go there, there are rules of engagement, but you go there with specific instructions to secure our water bodies and our forest reserves. Because as you know, a lot of waters take their source from our forest reserves. The president himself noted this. That is why we must protect our forest reserves. And it's very sad and disappointing that the president, contrary to what he said when in opposition, has not revoked LI 2462, which allows mining in forest reserves. What is before Parliament is an amendment which does not really solve the problem, because it allows virtually unfettered access to our forest reserves. So we are appealing to His Excellency the President to understand what is going on, protect Ghanaians by declaring a state of emergency. We've said that they are environmental terrorists, so the blue water guards cannot fight them. Declare a state of emergency. Let those who have been trained, our armed forces, the army, the navy, air force, let them deal with the situation. And after they've cleared out these terrorists, then we can think of what we can do to ensure that they don't return to our water bodies and to our forest reserves. We'll leave the engagement of the community and any other organizations to help. But for now, let's all focus on putting out the fire. The house is on fire.
And I wanted to hold on a bit. Can I take a listen to Dr. Murtala Mohammed, who is the Minister in charge of Environment, Science and Technology, also responding to the concern you just raised about the LI 2462 and the declaration of the state of emergency. Take a listen.
Personalize it. That it is my brother's thing.
No. I'm not personalizing.
No, but that's what you just said. You just said that. No, you can't blame the minister for lands for and debate, particularly coming from civil society organizations, which was people going to mine in forest reserved areas. And we all do know that the reason why the government did that was not for the purposes of just protecting our forest area, but to give a particular company, the authorization or the right to mine in areas for whatever reason that is known to the government. So these are some of the issues we are looking at.
In this instance, you have to throw away the water and with the baby in it.
No, but mind you, there are aspects of it which is also very, very
Which
good.
aspects are good?
If you look at the EPA, the EPA didn't in fact, and that comes to the last point you made. Initially, the EPA virtually permit or certification was just the last resort, that people can just go and get the other, license or other permits to mine. But with the new law, the EPA permit now is a condition precedent. Yes. That you need to have that before you can even be considering going to. Because mind you, the other permits that you get falls under one ministry. But with the EPA, it falls under a completely different ministry. In this case, Ministry of Environment, Science and Technology. So that alone created an inselberg on the way of those who wanted to abuse that aspect of the law. Take our Constitution today. There are a lot of, provisions in the Constitution that we now have problems with. Provisions that we never had problems with when the Constitution, this 1992 Constitution was enacted into law. But any law at any point in time, people will raise concerns. It is possible that we would have just completely repealed this and come out with a new law that my brother, Dr. Kena Achigbe, would have been very happy with. Maybe within 1 year and 2 years, he'll sit on TV3 and say, look, I think that there is an aspect of this law that we need to take a second look. Because laws are tested based on the circumstances and events.
So, also, that's the Minister in charge of Environment there, Dr. Murtala Mohammed, that laws are tested based on time and events. And to that extent, they have assessed the current LI 2462, the aspects of it which are bad and retrogressive. They have sought to repeal that aspect and then also keep some of the good parts of that same LI 2462. Does that cut it?
No, it doesn't. Let's be absolutely clear. That law is not fit for purpose, and that is why it should be revoked and not amended. Even the past administration, under whose watch this perverse piece of legislation was passed, had set out to revoke it, not to amend it. For example, under the old law, you could not mine on more than 2% of production forest reserve. Under LI 2462, there's no such restriction. All they have done right now is remove the right of the president to allow mining in globally significant biodiversity areas. That's about it. And let's be clear, the mandate of the Forestry Commission, not the EPA, is to protect our forests. The EPA comes in, but it's the Forestry Commission that have the primary task of protecting our forest reserves. So all the excuses we are giving for not revoking, with the greatest respect, do not stand scrutiny. Revoke LI 2462 as the president himself promised whilst in administration. He said that if the NPP did not do so, when he came to power, they would do so. He needs to keep his promise so that Ghanaians will continue having confidence. Otherwise, the overwhelming mandate is beginning to dissipate because Ghanaians are saying that apart from the e-levy and betting tax, a lot of the promises that were made are not being kept. And let's be clear, we have revoked e-levy. Fantastic. But when we are all dying of kidney disease, of what benefit is that? What we really need to do is to be protected. Our drinking water needs to be safe. As we stand, because the drinking water is being contaminated, farmlands are being contaminated, the food we are eating is being contaminated. So that in addition to the ecocide, there are food security concerns, and there are national security concerns. These environmental terrorists, some of them are armed to the teeth. So we appeal to the president, declare a state of emergency, and show good faith by sticking to your promise to repeal LI 2462. There's absolutely no reason to keep it. Absolutely no reason.
Awola, appreciate you for this. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Awola Sewa is the co-founder and national coordinator of Eco-Conscious Citizens, one of the foremost CSOs in the environment space, leading the fight against illegal mining in this country. It's live here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We're also on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and on W93.5 in Wa and beyond. Stay with us. We're back shortly with the business news. Bismarck Ewusa is standing by. We'll settle for the sports news after the business news here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7.
I wake up early every weekday because of you, to keep you on top of your game. Yeah!
You are at the center of our universe. That's why we make it a duty to serve you only the freshest, hottest news and entertainment. When you want it, where you want it.
Good morning, Ghana, Africa, and the rest of the wonderful world. Welcome to Sunrise on 3FM 92.7. Start your day well informed. Start with us on Sunrise on 3FM 92.7. Catch the all-new Sunrise Morning Show on 3FM 92.7 with me, Johnny Hughes, Helen Apialabofo, weekdays from 5:55 a.m. to 10 a.m. only on 3FM 92.7.
3FM, your urban lifestyle radio.
Hello, good evening and welcome to the business segment on Hot Edition with me, Bismarck Ausa. Coming up tonight, Gold Board takes over Ghana's gold trade as government cancels all old licenses of the Precious Minerals Marketing Company. Thanks for your company. Now to the detail. The Ghana Gold Board has announced a sweeping overhaul of the country's gold trading system following the passage of the Ghana Gold Board Act 2025. Under the new law, only Gold Board is authorized to buy, sell, assay or export gold from the small-scale mining sector. The following report has the details. The country's gold trading framework has been significantly restructured following the passage of the Ghana Gold Board Act 1140 of 2025. The new law revokes all licenses previously issued by the Precious Minerals Marketing Company (PMMC) and the minister responsible for mines, except those granted to large-scale mining companies. This means effective immediately, only the Ghana Gold Board can legally buy, sell, assay or export gold from Ghana's artisanal and small-scale mining sector. Gold Board says no person or entity may trade in gold unless licensed directly by the board as a buyer, aggregator or service provider. Ghanaians or Ghanaian-owned firms with expired licenses or those seeking new entry can apply for fresh Gold Board permits starting 22nd April. In a strong message to foreign players, Gold Board has ordered all foreigners out of the local gold market by 30th April. Foreign nationals may still buy gold directly from Gold Board but can no longer operate in Ghana's local value chain. The directive ends with a warning: beginning 1st May 2025, dealing in gold without a valid Gold Board license will be considered a criminal offense. Still on the extractive sector, and the Minerals Commission has defended its decision to decline the renewal of the diamond mining lease for Goldfields Ghana Limited. Reliable sources at the Commission indicate that the mine failed to meet requirements for its lease to be extended. Though the specifics for the refusal are yet to be made public, Section 44 of the Minerals and Mining Act 2006, Act 703, gives explicit reason for the renewal of a mining lease. Failure to fulfill the requirements of the Act could result in the government's refusal to renew the mandate to the mine. The rejection to renew the mining lease comes at a time when the 30-year mining lease, which was granted by the government of Ghana in April 1995, is due to expire on April 18, 2025. Moving on, Health Minister Kwabena Mintah-Akando says the country will need not less than $25 million this year alone to import vaccines, a development he warns could further strain the cedi. His comments come in the wake of government's efforts at controlling the depreciating cedi. The sector minister at the Farmer Excellence Awards said the heavy reliance on vaccine imports means the country must constantly convert its local currency into foreign exchange, which puts pressure on the cedi and contributes to depreciation. He is therefore urging the local pharmaceutical industry to take up the challenge of domestic vaccine production to reduce forex outflows and enhance national health security.
This year alone, we need not less than $25 million to import, even as a counterpart funding. If we begin and continue this way, where we import more than 70%, it has serious consequences on the economy, because what it means is that we are converting our cedis into major currencies for importation.
Meanwhile, President of the Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana, Dr. Samuel Koldonko, has warned that any pharmacist or wholesaler found engaging in the illegal sale of opioids will face severe sanctions, starting with the revocation of their operating licenses. He stressed that the Pharmacy Council is adopting a zero-tolerance approach to illicit trading within the space.
As for the regulatory arm, I can assure that the Pharmacy Council will spare no one who is found to be involved in this illicit drugs dealings. If you're a community pharmacy, you're a wholesaler, and you are found to be dealing in such products, your license will be withdrawn or will be revoked. And if you're a pharmacist, you will also get your license suspended.
Now, Ghana's stock market had a strong first quarter in 2025, with the main index rising by over 27% and financial stocks gaining nearly 29%. This sharp growth is giving many investors hope that the country's economy is turning the corner after years of difficulty. But some are still asking whether this rise will last or if it's just a short-term boost for recent government policies. Abena Amoah is Managing Director of the Ghana Stock Exchange.
So far this year, at the end of March, the equities market was up 27%. The fixed income market volume traded is up 45% compared to the same time last year. Our market is being resilient, and the challenge or the opportunity for many is we need more IPOs. We need more companies to come to market and access the money that's available. Our joint regulators, also called the West Africa Securities Regulators, are working with us, the market operators, to really transform the West Africa market. And Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, or BRVM are all taking initiatives to come together and see how we can do cross-trading. So we have a project called the West Africa Capital Markets Integration Project, and it means that a Ghanaian now, instead of having access to only securities that are listed on the GSE, also has access to trade securities on the Nigerian exchange and on the BRVM.
And that was Managing Director of the Ghana Stock Exchange, Abena Amoah, ending the business segment on Hot Edition with me, Bismarck Ausa. For more business stories, please check out our website, 3news.com. Reku is here for the sports. Please stay.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the sports segment on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7 with me, Oreku Ampofo. We start off from the Ghana Premier League, where Matchday 27 delivered thrilling encounters across various venues, keeping fans on the edge of their seats. My colleague Mutala Yakubu provides a comprehensive breakdown of what happened at these games.
Matchday 27 of the Ghana Premier League provided us with some interesting results. Hartlepool visited Vision at the Niaje Kraku Park in Tema, where they were held to a 1-1 draw. Asante Kotoko, for the first time this season at home, also dropped points against Bechem United, where they played 1-1. Bechem scored first, and Kotoko had to come from behind, and Albert Amoah scoring for them somewhere in the 84th minute to tie the game at 1-1. The biggest winners of Matchday 27 has to be BBNE Gold Stars, who beat the Young Apostles by a goal to nil, and have gone on top of the table. Same point with Asante Kotoko on 47. Karela also lifted themselves out of the relegation zone after they beat Adriana by 2-0. So it's getting pretty interesting in the Ghana Premier League.
And so that was my colleague Mutala Yakubu there talking about the Ghana Premier League. But let's switch our attentions to women's football, but still stay in Ghana, because Police Ladies have been crowned champions of the Southern Zone in the Women's Premier League after beating Epiphany by 2-0. They won 11 games, drew 6 and just lost once, bringing an end to Hazaka's ladies' dominance in the process. Coach Abu Kassim shared this with the media after their latest achievement.
Come on tops. Epiphany has one of the best squads, young players, with a lot of intelligence. In fact, they have more intelligent players than my team, even though they are very, very young, so we need to go into difficult. But I was just counting on the experience of my team, and thank God, experience came to bear. How do you sum up your season this year? Yeah, roller coaster. In the beginning, I think we started strongly with a massive win away, and somewhere along the line, we started dropping points. I think due to fatigue, and probably maybe the other coaches are getting to know us better, formation or tactics, so we had to go back and then replan and rebrand, to finish very, very hard. So it has always been something that looked like we are coming on tops. We played very well in every game, apart from today's game and also against Jonina at home. I think we've always looked like we are going to win every other game that we play throughout the season.
Well, let's do some more, because Ghana's under-20 side, the Black Satellites, have been drawn in Group C of the upcoming Total Energies African Under-20 Cup of Nations. The draw, which took place in Egypt on Sunday, will see the Black Satellites take on Senegal, DR Congo and Central African Republic. Ghana secured qualification to the Continental Showpiece after finishing as runners-up in the WAFU Zone B competition against Nigeria. African football expert Nuhu Adams shares insights on the chances of the Black Satellites.
Well, it's quite a tricky group. If you compare that to the one we had in the tournament that was supposed to go by Ivory Coast, because we had a very difficult group with the host nation and DR Congo and other countries. But I think this one is quite okay, because we have Senegal here, defending champions, and they will come all blazing, trying to defend the title. And aside from them being defending champions, Senegal are always producing very good players and quality at the stage. That's the under-20 level. So having Senegal in the group is difficult. DR Congo, they don't really have history. They don't have pedigree in the under-20 tournament. But what I've seen them doing is that they are trying to get players from the diaspora. So we are expecting them to present a very good squad. Then Central African Republic also trying to make a name for themselves. I think this is the second consecutive time they've qualified for the under-20 AFCON. So, with the exception of Senegal, Ghana should be able to navigate
biggest
the matches
mid-morning 3
and then Central African Republic and the quarterfinals will be secured, but there is no way we can underrate these countries.
So that was Nuhu Adams speaking there in African football aspect. Let's do some more and talk about Mohamed Kudus, because he has urged African players to portray their skills when handed the opportunity. Kudus's candid assessment comes after he was asked by UK-based Ghanaian rapper Governor B in an honest conversation about heritage, culture and identity.
When African players have been described, it's more about their physique, their strength, their speed, which in my eyes I believe that we have like skillful players. I urge more African players to be who they are and enjoy their qualities and stuff.
Well, that was Mohamed Kudus. Let's still stay in England because Liverpool clinched their spot in next season's Champions League and move an inch closer to securing their 20th Premier League title after defeating West Ham by 2-1 at home. On Slot's side are 13 points clear of Arsenal with 6 games remaining to play in the Premier League. Now, the manager believes that the team has achieved one of their season's objectives, but they have different priorities.
I think it's the main aim for the club because they've experienced 2 years ago how much of an impact it is if you are not a part of the Premier League, Champions League, sorry. So yes, indeed, the main aim and what they told me is, look at the players, give your opinion about it, so we can go into this project in the second and the first year, but do qualify for the Champions League. And we all know that even the team that is at 16 at the moment has very good players, but the top 8 is all of them have incredible players. So it's getting more difficult and more difficult to qualify for the Champions League. So, but to be honest, if you would ask this question to me in the beginning of the season, I would say, oh, nice. But yesterday it wasn't I opened a bottle of wine because we qualified for the Champions League. We have now, of course, a bigger aim than only qualifying for the Champions League.
Well, that was Liverpool boss and Slot. Let's do some more before we go and talk about tennis, because Carlos Alcaraz says that he is proud of how he coped with the difficult month after he fought back to beat Lorenzo Musetti and win the Monte Carlo Masters. The 4-time champion made a slow start but grew in confidence and quality to overcome the Italian 3-6, 6-1, 6-0 on clay. Let's now hear from the latest champion from Monte Carlo.
Well, this honestly, this is huge for me. It doesn't matter that I've won Master 1000 before or Grand Slam before. It's always immense. Lifting a Master 1000 again, a trophy. So it's for me it is great, and this means all the hard work I put the last week or the last couple of weeks. And seeing that I paid it off is great for me, for my team, and for my people.
For more sports updates, you can follow us on social media on 3sportsgh, or you can follow latest articles on 3news.com/sports. My name is Oreku Ampofo, and Hot Edition continues right after this.
I wake up early.
This is Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, also on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. We're live on W93.5 in and beyond. President Mahama over the weekend launched government's flagship agricultural program dubbed Feed Ghana program. It seeks to revolutionize the country's agricultural sector by increasing food production, reducing reliance on imports, and creating jobs for the youth. The program includes sub-projects focusing on vegetables, grains, poultry, oil palm, tubers, and other key commodities to strengthen food security and boost agro-processing. Speaking during the launch in Techiman in the Bono East region, the president said the initiative will provide farmers with essential support to enhance productivity and stabilize food systems. He emphasized the urgency of reducing Ghana's $2 billion annual food import bill, which exposes the economy to external market risks.
The Feed Ghana program is our flagship initiative. It is a strategic umbrella under which all agricultural projects and interventions will be executed. It is anchored on deliberate actions to increase food production, promote modern farm practices, strengthen infrastructure, and develop agro-industrial zones across the length and breadth of Ghana. Since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, the world has shifted. Global protectionism is rising. Tariff wars are being waged among the world powers, and new trade tensions are emerging between nations. These trends demand a fundamental rethink of how we feed ourselves and engage with regional markets like the African Continental Free Trade Area. The Feed Ghana program is therefore timely. It represents a bold commitment to put our resources where our ambitions lie.
As President John Dramani Mahama there. Now, there's been concerns about how this is going to be implemented, and fundamentally different from what we saw with the Planting for Food and Jobs program and the details thereof. Let's go on to the telephone now. Bismarck Owusu Norte is Executive Director of the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana, joining us now. Mr. Norte, good evening. Thank you for joining us here on Hot Edition.
Yeah, good evening, Alfred, and thank you for having me.
No, based on the briefings that you have on this program, and I'm sure for you as peasant farmers, you've already been engaging the Agric Ministry on it. How much of an impact or difference will this initiative make in the scheme of things?
Well, I think that if you look at the approach of this particular program, the fact that they are looking at three different aspects. So from the program, I see that there's the institutional support that is going to the universities and other institutions. Then I see the support that is going directly to the farmers. That will also include our members. And then the one that is trying to incentivize individuals to also go into farming. I think that and that's a very big if the ministry is able to take off all the aspects of bad implementation, of political influence, of lack of transparency, and involve more stakeholders, they are more transparent, and then there is a clear direction, I'm hopeful that this program will make much more impact than all the initial programs that we started in the country. Because you and I know that when it comes to agricultural programs in Ghana, Ghana has not been short of set policies. However, we all know that when the implementation starts and you have these political people extending their greedy hands into what is not meant for them, that's when challenges are encountered. So for us, the hope is that the ministry will be more engaging, there will be more clarity, there will be proper targeting of beneficiaries, and I'm sure that once we can be able to do that, this program should have a bigger impact than the ones we had in the past.
You emphasize on the big if. Why? Because as you indicated quite copiously, implementation of such wonderful programs has always been the issue. We saw how the Planting for Food and Jobs played out in its implementation stages, and now we have this. How do you expect things to be done differently so as to then address this problem of ineffective implementation of policies?
Yeah, so I think that the first point is we expect the ministry or the minister
to have regular engagement and dialogue before stakeholders. So in terms of the conceptualization, the implementation modalities, the approach, and all those things, we expect regular and frequent dialogue with stakeholders, because when you do that, then you are opening the door to receive feedback, and that feedback will help you to improve the program. One of the challenges of PFJ is that door for engagement and feedback was closed. So feedback wasn't worked on by the ministry, and we don't want to see that. Another aspect that we would want the minister to also look at is the fact that they also have to bring on board clear policy direction, clear policy documents, clear framework, because we want to measure the success of the program by these identified frameworks. And that's something that is also important to us. The other aspect that we want to see the minister doing is to have regular engagement with stakeholders. Engage us regularly, update us. We should also expect transparency. If, for instance, we are expecting that for this particular year, X number of farmers are supposed to benefit, it will be important for us to know what is the selection criteria, which farmers are benefiting, what is the mode of repayment, if any. All those things should be clear. And lastly, there are very key technical people at the ministry who are actually experts in the implementation of these programs. We don't expect to see political people coming into that line to take over their work and for it to become an avenue for politicians to also make money at the expense of general Ghanaians and farmers. So for me, I think that the lessons of PFJ are very clear. I'm sure the ministry has got briefings on why PFJ didn't work. And based on our engagement with him, he appears to be very open for further engagement. So we hope that those engagements will continue. We are ready to provide feedback. We are ready to monitor and see how it's going. And we want to ensure that members also benefit. So once these are in place, I'm very hopeful that the program will get the desired impact we want as a country.
I do appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
And that's the Executive Director of the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana, Besma Kawusu, noted them, joining us here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. The Upper East Regional Minister, Donato Satanga, is urging security personnel in and around Boko not to abandon their post as the conflict there escalates. It follows growing concerns raised by some security personnel over increased targeting by the feuding factions, making life difficult for them. The conflict continues to claim lives as government works at resolving it. Over the weekend, 2 police officers were gunned down by assailants and the police believed to be armed robbers. The incident comes just hours after the IGP COP Christian Tete Yohuno left the troubled town after a working visit. 3FM sources say the situation in Boko remains tensed. The Upper East Regional Minister, Donato Satanga, whilst urging calm, has called on the security personnel remain steadfast in their duty. He says the situation does not warrant a state of emergency as being suggested.
I am here to meet at RESEC and take a decision. But if you are talking as an individual, if you talk about the state of emergency declaration, and you tie it to armed robbery situation in Boko or the police, the 2 police, which the police have reported that it came as a result of robbery. I think that if you want to declare a state of emergency in an area because there is robbery, then the whole Ghana, they should declare state of emergency. Now, if it is about the Boko conflict that is happening there, it has been referred to an eminent chief to handle. And then it is not like it is sporadic. Every day they are fighting on each other. There is some instance that sparks up an issue, then it is brought under control. And so, declaring state of emergency, it is not an all-war situation. And so, why will we declare state of emergency? And then if you say that the police reported the 2 deaths as a robbery, and then maybe from certain quarters.
As a minister there, now former Auditor General Daniel Yao Demelovo is calling for specific legislation to regulate the use of what he calls the Nole Prosequa, cautioning that the unchecked power to drop prosecutions could be exploited to shield political allies. Speaking at the Constitution Review Committee stakeholder engagement on corruption, he advocated
people are not believing that.
For
that
clear
one, I will not.
Legal guidelines to ensure that decisions to discontinue cases are made transparently. We'll bring you details of that shortly here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, also on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond, also on W93.5 in Wa and beyond. On behalf of the rest of the team, we do appreciate your company. There's more news on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. Thank you very much for staying with us. Join me at 10 p.m. on TV3 for Ghana Tonight. I am Alfred Ocansey. Have a great evening.